Hey everybody, I'm Matt Williamson and I'm back with a Beatle update for you. This time it's a Peter Jackson update, and what I'm going to show you is a compilation of some of the recent videos he's given about the process of making Get Back. He spent 4 years on this project and there were several revelations along the way.
Well, I certainly learned a lot about this particular period of time. Every book that you read says that they were at each other's throats, it was miserable, and it was the beginning of the breakup of the Beatles and everything else. And that's actually just not true. They're not a band that's intending to break up. There's hardly any arguments, if you can even call them arguments. There's hardly anything like that. They are totally together. John and Paul are working as a team. George brings in some great songs because he's beginning to write some really good songs now, and it's going to make you rethink this period of time if you're a Beatles fan. I didn't want to change history. I wanted to show history as accurately as I could.
I wish it just not have to sing that bit. No.
As I watched it more, it became obvious that the way to do it is the most simple way, which is to tell a very consecutive narrative.
It's, our documentary is not people talking, being interviewed today, and then you have a little clip of unseen footage and then more interview. Our documentary is entirely from one end to the other unseen footage. Hours of it. We don't pad it out with the familiar stuff. This is just it's all new footage. It just blows my mind.
So it's good to hear that his mind was blown, because even he is surprised at some of the footage he's been seeing here and has been sitting watching for all this time. One of the things that I thought was interesting, I'm glad to hear that it is a linear telling of the story, which we kind of suspected, but some people thought, well, are they going to bring in interview people? Are they going to record some new video from today to discuss what's going on, to lead you through this process? Apparently that's not the case. There's so much available that he doesn't need to shoot anything new at all.
Well, it's joyous to look at it. I mean, I didn't sort of create the joyousness. It's there in the footage, and so I mean that's what I loved when I looked at the entire bulk of the outtakes. This was funny stuff. It was humorous. I mean, it's dramatic. It's got, George Harrison walks out for a while halfway through. I mean, it's not all just plain sailing, but their friendship gets them through it, and and it tells you a lot about these four guys, because if you want to ever see what someone is really like, then see how they react to a crisis. That's going to tell you more about anybody than any a hard day's night or a witty comments at a press conference. See how these guys react when things derail and things start to go wrong, and that will tell you who they are. And I came away with even more respect for the Beatles than I did going in.
One of the things that I've uncovered for myself anyway, in going through the research and listening to all these Niagara tapes and making these videos, is that how much the Beatles accomplished in that short period of time. So the backs were against the wall. They put their own backs there, but they were able to accomplish, a wonderful album, a couple of films, 3 #1 singles, demos for the next couple of albums. So it was certainly a success.
The sound restoration is the thing that's a big breakthrough on this movie. I mean, the picture, everyone obviously sees the picture restoration and sees it looking nice, and that's the most visible thing. But we had audio sound that was recorded by a film crew on mono tape, 1/4-inch mono tape. When they get into the studio in the second half into Savile Row, they start doing some 8-track recordings in a proper recording studio. So we were able to use those. But for a lot of it, they're rehearsing, and they're not recording in a studio. They're rehearsing in a big film studio. And so the film crew are recording them, and the sound was appalling. It was terrible because it's not mixed, it's not balanced. So they'd be playing a song, and the vocals would be drowned out by the guitars, and drums would be too soft, or the drums would be too loud. I mean, it would just change all the time because it was just the film guys. So we developed technology that allowed us to split the mono track into all its components.
The advances in machine learning that have allowed us to clean up the audio and things that we never thought we could hear. Now we can strip away the guitars and actually hear what they were saying.
The computer recognizes John's voice and Paul's voice.
Left his home in Tucson, Arizona. Tucson in Arizona, yeah. Tucson.
So if they're talking over the top of each other, we can either have John or Paul. This has only been the last few months we've actually figured out how to do this.
One of the biggest pluses for me anyway with this whole project is the enhanced audio. Now, Peter Jackson just mentioned the software that they stumbled upon and learned how to use it to separate the mono tracks and to isolate the voices, and this is great. And some of the stuff that I've been playing for you on this channel I've been using just the source tapes I got from the bootleg Niagara reels. And I think we're going to hear a lot of what I've played in much better quality and much clearer and crisper. And I'm going to show you, let me play you an example of something that I used in a recent video and something that Peter Jackson has cleaned up.
We've never learned so many new numbers at once, have we? We've never learned so many new numbers at once, have we?
So one thing I have to remind myself of is that this is really still Michael Lindsay Hogg's film. I mean, he shot everything. There'll be no new footage shot. All the audio we're going to hear were set up by him. And he went to some great lengths to get the best audio he could for this movie. And interestingly enough, the technology didn't allow him to use it in 1969, but it looks like we'll get a chance to use it here in 2021.
Part of the story is Michael Lindsay Hogg is making this film, and he's a character. I mean, he wasn't in the movie. He did make Let It Be. He doesn't appear in his own film, as you directors generally don't, but he's a character in our film. And there's this battle of wills goes on between Michael and the Beatles, because he, as I would if I was doing that job, he wants to film them when they don't know they're being filmed. He wants to record their conversations when they don't know they're being taped. So he becomes very adept at hiding microphones in strange places. He had his camera crew set the cameras up on tripods with 10-minute long rolls and just quietly hit the button and walk away to the cup of tea table. So the Beatles would just see these cameras sitting there with nobody behind them and think, oh, they're not filming us at the moment. They're off having a cup of tea. So they'd start to be very open and honest. And yet Michael's secretly filming them. He put a bit of tape over the red light. And then with the sound, when they realized that he was filming their conversations, usually John or George would turn the amp up really loud and just strum the guitar. Not playing anything, just dang, dang, dang. So they're all talking while dang, dang. So Michael's sound is getting ruined. But of course, with this technology we've got, we can strip away the guitar and reveal these hidden conversations that they didn't want anyone to hear. So a lot of our narrative is told with them having conversations with each other that they never intended anyone to hear, but we can now hear them perfectly well. And in the movie, you a lot of when they're talking to each other, quite a bit of that is drowned out by guitars in the original audio, but not anymore.
One thing that Jackson just mentioned that had never really occurred to me, I had gotten quite a lot of comments through the videos I've shown of these sessions where John appeared to be not paying attention, just strumming the guitar, trying to move the conversation along. This was the thought of many people. And from what Jackson says here, they were intentionally trying to cover up what they were talking about, which puts a different light on what Lennon's role was here, and that he maybe wasn't trying to just move things along and be rude and play over the talking, but instead to hide the talking. So that's kind of an interesting take. So Jackson goes on to say a little more yet here.
Michael Lindsay Hogg deserves a huge amount of credit. He gets a bad rap for, Let It Be, grim and depressing, and but the truth of it is, I mean, he shot this footage and he made such a contribution to the history of rock and roll by shooting this, and this is good on him.
So it's nice to hear Jackson give Michael Lindsay Hogg some props here, because he does deserve a lot of the credit here. And had Let It Be come out like in the summer of '69, with the film and everything done in place of Abbey Road, it probably wouldn't have the stink of the breakup on it. So that might have been the Abbey Road album that had that, if that had come out then later. One of the things that I've looked into, Michael Lindsay Hogg had mentioned that when Alan Klein got involved in the summer of '69, thereabouts, there was some maneuvering to get the film released by MGM, because apparently Klein was vying to get on the board there. So this is something I didn't know, but this is one of the things that helped prolong the film getting released, is some of Klein's behind the scenes maneuvering, and ultimately just was released by United Artists anyway. But that's one thing that Michael Lindsay Hogg had said in a recent interview.
The Beatles didn't want it to be seen. So if they don't want something to be seen, it's easy. They have it in they have a big vault, which I got to visit, a secret vault in an undisclosed location somewhere in the world. It's like a James Bond thing, fortress. Yeah. And this was all sitting on a shelf, and they have not wanted anybody to see it for 50 years, because they didn't like Let It Be, only because Let It Be was released when they were breaking up. So it was a miserable time, and they associated Let It Be with their breaking up, and they their memories have become all screwed up. But Let It Be was released 15 months after the stuff was shot. So the footage itself has nothing to do with the breaking up of the band. It just happens to be that Michael had to do all the post-production on his movie, and by the time he got his movie finished, they were breaking up. So so the Beatles themselves sort of bought into the mythology, and they Let It Be was pulled out of circulation in the 1980s, and they said, we never want Let It Be to be seen again. You can't get it. It's never been released on Blu-ray or DVD. It's not on, it's not available to anybody in this footage. If they didn't want Let It Be to be seen by anybody, they certainly didn't want the outtakes to be seen by anybody. So they sat on a misconception, if you like, themselves for all this time.
And we will see all those outtakes just a few days from now. So I'm very excited, and I got my Disney Plus already lined up. So I just wanted to leave you this little Peter Jackson information here as a lead-in to this extravaganza, as it were. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll see you sometime after Get Back. Thanks for watching Pop Goes the 60s.
I lost my little girl. Her clothes were not expensive, ladies and gentlemen. Clothes were not expensive. Her hair didn't always curl. It didn't always curl. But one thing I realized when I realized I'd lost her, that is, I realized I'd lost my little girl. Can you dig it?